Welcome to the Principles of Performance podcast, where we discuss how to optimize your health, fitness, and performance. Drawing on decades of experience of working as coaches, consultants, and trainers to top performers, athletes, and teens from professional sports to top universities to the U.S. military, Eric DeGatti and Mike Perry discuss topics and strategies of how to perform at your highest level and be your very best. Join us and our friends and colleagues who are leaders in the fitness and performance industry as we investigate and challenge the most popular training, nutrition, lifestyle, and recovery protocols. And away we go. Here we are with the Principles of Performance podcast. I'm your host, Eric DeGatti, along with my friend and co-host, Mike Perry. And Mike, we're always looking for interesting and unique topics, and I think we have one today.
Yeah, this is going to be another one where I'm just going to sit back and learn because, this is something I really don't know too much about. And so before I start my rambling, why don't you go ahead and finish our bio for our guest, and then when we can ask some good questions.
Absolutely. So today our guest is Ashlee Kaufman, and she's an entrepreneur with nearly 30 years in health and wellness. And she's a certified physician assistant and has her master's in medical science. She co-founded several successful businesses. She's formulated over 150 different supplements and holds four product patents. As a CEO of Renuology, she merges science and innovation and offers personalized wellness through DNA-driven insights. And that's what we're going to talk about today, something she calls DNA blueprinting. She holds two board seats in research and development sector, and she also has experience scaling startups and working with Fortune 500 brands. So this is going to be an interesting one, and we thank you for joining us, Ashlee.
Thank you. I'm excited.
All right, so we're going to dive right in, and let's talk about your background in medicine and what you have seen in our current healthcare system that you really wanted to impact, address, and make a change.
That's a great question because I've been in the healthcare space my entire career. And what really, I think, ignited where we are today is because back in 2016, I lost my brother to type 1 complications to diabetes. And he had been a type 1 since the age of 12 or 13. And seeing kind of how his T1 was treated versus kind of now, and the access to innovations is minimal. So if you have great insurance and lots of money, you can get the advancements. If you don't, you're kind of on this like syringe protocol, which isn't the best. So seeing that kind of play out, we actually started a T1 foundation to put children on pods. So instead of having a syringe, they're now on a pod system, and we pay for it up until the point that the child can't pay for it. They can pay for it themselves. So that's kind of where all of this kind of started. And I was still in the corporate world. I was still working with large companies in the wellness space, supplements. And what took the turn for me is realizing that we take supplements and we take wellness to a certain degree, but we don't really think about what happens when we ingest those supplements and also what our DNA does with those supplements. And I think that was the piece that I felt was missing in our wellness journey, was understanding our bodies, understanding kind of what happens naturally in our bodies differently, because we are all unique, and our wellness journeys need to be just as unique. And it comes to whether it be disease interception, whether it be preventative medicine, performance. We work with a lot of athletes because that's key to them, is understanding what supplements they're taking and what is a waste. So for them uniquely. So that's kind of the journey. Is I was a PA for probably 4 or 5 years, and I got into starting a company during the .com boom and never went back, but I've always utilized kind of that experience and knowledge to the companies that I worked for. So that's kind of where we are today.
Okay, so you've been in that room with that patient And you probably also saw where we also fall miserably short in Western medicine, and that you'll hear the doctor say, common medical recommendations, and you may have even said them yourself at some point, like, okay, we have this issue, so you really need to start exercising, or you need to eat right. But it ends up falling on deaf ears, and I think a lot of that is because it lacks context and practical action steps. So kind of tell me how you've seen that firsthand and where it falls short.
Well, I feel like the physicians use almost kind of this cookie cutter protocol. And when you get your lab work back and it says, okay, your cholesterol is a little high and your sugar was a little high fasting, let's just make sure we work on those. Some physicians will say, okay, let's work on it naturally, which is great. Some physicians will say, let's put you on a medication to bring it down. And it's all, again, very uniquely different to the physician how they want to treat their patients. If it's naturally, they don't take the steps of, okay, let's look at your body and see what naturally will help and support your body. You could have methylations that prevent your body from actually absorbing certain supplements. You could have sensitivities to certain things that are causing the high blood pressure or causing your cholesterol to be high. So there's so many pieces to the puzzle that I think that we don't take multiple steps to understand. We just think, okay, everybody wants kind of that quick fix. Everybody wants just to lower their cholesterol, make sure their sugar is good, and they're good to go. And there's just never a really quick fix, because even if you go the medicine route, the pharmaceutical, there's the side effects. There's the I guess the longevity piece of it, being on those medications for a long period of time. So there's never going to be a perfect fix until you really understand what's causing it internally in your body.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm going to go piece by piece with some follow-ups. One is I always talk about the great practitioners, whether it's in our field in fitness, whether it's in performance, whether it's in health and medicine. They ask the second question, right? So it's not just as simple as saying, okay, cholesterol is X or Y. It is, okay, well, why is this happening? Let's look a little bit deeper. Tell me about your stress, your nutrition, your sleep, those sorts of things. So you kind of mentioned and alluded to it, is like asking those deeper questions. And sometimes it's a matter of uh, if your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so if you've been trained that if you see this, then prescribe this, then I almost can't fault you for that, because that's all you know. And
Mhm.
giving, medical practitioners more tools so they can ask that second question. How do we go about starting to do that?
Yeah, and I think there's also the physician itself. Like if you're a physician that sees 100 plus patients a day, that you've got 5 minutes at most with that patient. If you're a physician that has more of a VIP, smaller practice, you have a little bit more of that hands-on approach. But I think that having access to, instead of just blood work, bringing in the DNA, bringing in additional testing, and have it accessible to every patient, I think that's step number one, because I think blood work is just kind of that initial step to see, okay, is everything aligned? That's all it is. It's basically saying, fasting wise, are you at a borderline, or are you in between? Where are you at? And a lot of things can change that blood work based off of what happened that week prior. So we're not really looking into the next steps of, okay, is this really a concern? Maybe it was just because of something that occurred the week prior. Maybe it's something maybe you're fighting off a bug or a virus, and it caused your numbers to be a little bit out of whack. We have to kind of look deeper into that. And that would be the next step of, I see these concerns. I see maybe your liver enzymes are a little elevated. Let's look deeper into that and see if it's a long-term issue, which one of the reports that we do is liver and kidney and thyroid and heart, seeing if there is and that's what we call disease interception, is seeing if there's something based off your DNA that down the road you're going to have an issue. But right now you're perfectly fine. You don't have those symptoms. Understanding that would be life-changing for sure.
Okay, so now I keep following up on that. There's two actual great books that I've just completed that I highly recommend. And one of them talks about when you talk about, the doctor's influence, we talk about what influences the doctor. And Malcolm Gladwell just has a new book out called Revenge of the Tipping Point, and he talked about where doctors may be more have a higher tendency to follow certain protocols based on where they are. So if you have doctors who are in a certain part of the country and where they may do a certain protocol more than others, and then you move them to another part of the country where they don't use that protocol, they will begin to follow whatever is indigenous to their surroundings, and they'll start to follow more the protocol of the doctors that are surrounding them than making their own independent decisions. Now, the second part of that is another book, Good Energy by Dr. Casey Means. She talks about that when we look at these markers, and you just kind of alluded to it as well, is that we're looking at like, are the wheels falling off? It's the check engine light. It's the warning sign that bad things are going to happen. But those things were probably giving you warnings well before that red light came on, but we don't detect those. We're looking at what is the cutoff for it being a problem, as opposed to looking at what is optimal and saying how far off are you from that. And that is a different approach.
Sure. It really is, because if you think about the check engine is, let's just say you had blood work and you had high cholesterol, or your cholesterol's tipping that little border point where we're not going to put you on medication, but you need to watch it. You need to change your diet. And usually it's a cookie cutter diet as well. Usually it's stay away from these things, make sure you do this, add the fiber, but they're not really looking at the body as a whole of like how your body is causing them itself to have high cholesterol. And that is a huge step. But there's a lot of things that linger that you can find out in the DNA testing that you don't even have the symptoms yet. Your blood work isn't even showing signs or symptoms that this is going to occur. It's basically saying the blueprint of your body is eventually going to have, at some point, liver issues, thyroid issues, heart issues. If you could, 10 years prior to the check engine light coming on, change your diet, change everything about you, because you know that you're already predispositioned to have something, wouldn't you do it like today? That's kind of like we're talking to a company that's doing at-home pancreatic and lung cancer, which are two typical death sentences. And now if you can do a blood test at home with a finger prick, know that your body's already got it like blueprinted in, wouldn't you try to do everything you can to push that disease down the road? I'd rather get it at 70 than 40 is kind of the thought process.
We're going to actually come back to that thought a little bit later. So, when we go into the individuality, right, and what recommendations are given, for a while there was a big trend of doing things like there was a whole popular diet of eat for your blood type. And it always kind of confused me because knowing what little bit I know about blood types is that there's a dominant blood types over one versus the other. And so what if your mother was one of those dominant blood types and your father wasn't? Well, you're going to get labeled as that dominant blood type, but you're then disregarding 50% of your, DNA makeup. And then but since then, there's been other things like that. And you hear a lot of times, and you'll get it a lot with social media influencers, and we should be more like our ancestors, and we should eat like we did. The problem is we're so far removed from that ancestral lifestyle and the environment. And, the other compounding factor, like I said, with the blood type is if you look at what your ancestors ate, is like if you look at, people from Nordic countries or Eskimos who lived on primarily like fat and high protein, and they had very little vegetation, and that was their diet, and they were relatively healthy. And then you look at, people who lived on the equator who lived on grain and root vegetables and so forth, because there was very little protein available, yet they were very healthy. So what if your mother's grew up, mother's, historically from the equator and your father's an Eskimo, you're kind of screwed in that situation. So how do we then address that to factor in, because we're kind of mutts that have been, you know, diluted over time, and then factor in, okay, we should be like our ancestors.
It's funny that you say mutts because we really are. Like, we don't have just one dominant feature in our body. And the problem is, too, is that our bodies are so smart. And I think this is why that book came into play of like, people treat certain things based off where they are because it's their food source. It's what's dominant inside their food source. If you've got California and they have a high heavy metal just naturally in their ground, a lot of people avoid, let's just say, drinking wine from California because of the heavy metals that are naturally in the ground. So a lot of it has evolved where our bodies have evolved to what we're dominantly eating and what's in our fruits and vegetables, our meats, where we get our meats. So I think a lot of it is now our bodies are just getting smarter to say, okay, I see now what I have to discard. I see how I need to eat, take in proteins because I see what kind of protein this person is eating. So, and it is naturally around us. Like, I'm based in Florida and we have a lot of fruits and vegetables that are naturally grown here. We have cattle that are here. We have a lot of access to a lot of things that some states don't have or don't utilize. That's another thing is a lot of people get orange juice from China versus just getting orange juice from your backyard. So now you're exposed to things that are not around you and not exposed to you. So you're compensating for the grocery store products and then compensating for the stuff that maybe you're like, those guys that go every Saturday to a fresh market or a green market and they want to get naturally grown things in your environment, like honey. Honey, you just can't get off a shelf. You've got to get it from where you are living because that's what carries those things, those elements that you need for your body from honey. So there's so many things that people don't understand that they just kind of go and just grab because they've heard somebody say, oh, make sure you're, eating honey or eating pollen, those types of things. But the key to that is the allergens that we're exposed to, let's just say in Florida, our bees carry to help us prevent like having allergies. So I think a lot of it is we want to think of one concept. This is the way we need to go. But there's really not one concept. And you have to, like, that's where it goes back to, all right, let's look at you and how your body is reacting to certain things. There's people that have salt, sensitivities that they don't even know they have a salt sensitivity. And everybody's worried about gluten, but it's like, you really need to test to see if your body is really sensitive to gluten or if it's sensitive to something else that happens to always be combined with gluten. So I think that's the piece that we're just missing.
So, we've been talking a lot about sort of testing, and a lot of this is done via blood testing. And I feel like I know in our industry, everybody's test heavy. It's like, we're going to test this, we're going to measure this, we're going to do this. And it almost feels like everybody has these tests. But then the disconnect is like, well, what does this look like in real life? Like, how do we take that complex information and apply it in real life? And what is that actually going to look like? Because like you said, it's not a magic pill. So how would you recommend people take the information they get and apply it in a very systematic, sustainable, and repeatable way?
Well, I think that's what, testing and then I guess relaying the results is the missing marker. And that's what we did with our DNA partnership is we really said, okay, let's put this in very layman terms, very generic, basic. And for example, one of our clients, she was always having leg pain and thought it was this, thought it was that, thought it was a blood clot, all these different things. Your mind goes wild because we're all Google MDs at this point, that it all came down to she just needed magnesium. And as soon as she started taking magnesium, she literally contacted me and said, I don't have leg pain anymore. And it was a very simple solution to something that we're thinking, when you Google, all right, signs and symptoms of leg pain, there is like an entire scroll of like, you could have. So I think it could be very, very simple to the things that we do. So when we report out, okay, you have a salt sensitivity, which could be causing you slight high blood pressure, which some people say, yeah, I go to the doctor and I have high blood pressure. Oh, it's because of the stress of the high blood pressure. But it really could be just down to a salt sensitivity, meaning you had something salty right before you went to the doctor, it kind of raised your blood pressure, and now they're thinking it's high blood pressure. So it's understanding the methylations that you potentially have. Like, for example, B12. B12, there is a methylation that a lot of people have that their body can't absorb B12 through a regular capsule form. So a lot of people take a B complex thinking it's doing this great thing for their bodies and they're supposed to get energy. And in reality, their body's just basically disposing of it because it can't connect it. It doesn't recognize it. So you need to take it in a fermented form so your body doesn't have to convert it. So there's so many of those little things, little key points that you could tell a consumer to say, okay, these are the things that you need to avoid. These are the things that you need more in your diet of. These are the methylations you have. So any form of vitamin D, B12, any of these methylations, please take it in a fermented form that your body doesn't have to convert. Like all those little things come in a report that say, this is how you basically change the outcome of what is about to come, meaning disease interception. And if thyroid, hey, your thyroid's running low, but it might not show up on a blood work, but it means DNA wise, your thyroid doesn't function the way that it should. And down the road, whether it be 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, it could. And there are supplements that you can take naturally that just help give your thyroid that extra boost that it needs that could push that down the road. So a lot of it's just keeping it very basic and simple. Don't over scientific it, don't make it this complicated thing. A lot of it is very, very easy.
Well, it's interesting because I've seen so many people. I saw this. It was probably a couple of years ago, and it was Huberman had like the Huberman stack, and he was talking about the sleep stack, and he had everybody else going out and buying this sleep stack, and it's interesting to see where the trends go. It's like it really does depend. They're recommending take this, take this, take this, and it's just like, but like you said, if it's not taken in a specific way via fermentation or whatever, it's just you're just wasting money. And I think that's where people really go wrong. It's like they see, okay, data came out, I'm going to buy the pills and just roll with it. And that's really what I tend to see happening with most people.
A lot, probably 90% of consumers will see a celebrity that says, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, and jump on it, which, look, we all know that's the marketing piece to it. The problem is that it actually could be doing you harm versus good. And that's the part that we're trying to kind of just educate. Like, we would rather not sell you a supplement and you figure out what your body needs to make sure that you're healthy, than just blindly sell a supplement that could either harm somebody, that could be a waste of money, because right now everybody's pinching the purse. Wouldn't you want to just take something that this is exactly what my body needs? I don't need the 5 other bottles that are on the counter. I think that's the piece that we're just missing, and we're not connecting the dots at all. Like, some people say take 10,000 D3. Some people say 30,000. Some say don't take over 5,000. So it's like, well, what is best for you? So I think that's what we want to keep harping on is, don't just listen to the marketing piece of, oh my God, this is going to give me so much energy and this is going to be amazing and I love it, when you really just don't know if it's going to react the same way in your body.
Hey, everybody, a quick break in the action here. Hope you're enjoying the show and we appreciate you listening. We're working hard to bring you the highest quality content and best guests every single week. So if you could do us a big favor and go and like and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you get your podcasts on, it would be greatly appreciated. Be sure to listen at the end of the show also to find out more information about our courses, as well as a special discount code for all our listeners. Thanks again, and let's get back to the show. We've had a couple of people on that have talked about the challenges of nutritional research. And it's relatively easy in our field to do exercise-based research because you can do something and then see an immediate acute reaction and then try to make some
Sure.
suppositions based on that. Whereas with nutrition, there's so many other things at play, and it's really hard to narrow down. And you're also looking at acute reactions where we don't know what the chronic reaction may be to something. And so that becomes one of the challenges within trying to say, hey, this does that. And I want to go back and circle back to that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about, as I'm listening to you, Ashley, like the discussion of talking about where nature versus nurture kind of fits in this conversation and like what's coded in our genes versus what we can actually control.
Mhm. And I think that there's also, when you think of nature versus nurture, there's also that change, I believe, that mentally, when you start changing kind of your thought process, like what you put into your body, I think that genetically your body starts almost reacting to that change. And I do think that you can push disease and illnesses down the road if you are listening and reacting to what you know about your body and what you know about wellness and health. You know, it's funny because like you think of like a cancer patient that gets diagnosed with, let's just say, Hodgkin's, which can be caused by pesticides. So then you think of all of the fruits and vegetables that are sprayed with pesticides every day. And how do I control my intake of pesticides? All right. Do I grow my own garden? What do I do? So I think there's a lot of um, avenues that you can go when it comes to nature versus nurture. Because, like, for example, I'm predispositioned to have anemia. And I know that my body also has a methylation to absorbing iron. So me going out and eating everything that is high in iron isn't going to do me any good because I know that I have a methylation to iron. So I can only do it certain ways to get that into my body. But I also can do like a revert around and eat foods that help produce red blood cells. So that's a key piece to it. People think anemia, oh, I need iron. But sometimes it's not just the iron. Sometimes it's, okay, let's think about what produces red blood cells. Are they large? Are they small? You know, Rh negative, do they not have that on top of them? Like there's a lot of things that I think people don't think about that you can actually reprogram your body of, oh, that's how I get red blood cells, not through iron. And it's kind of changing that course of nurture versus nature.
Okay, so now there was a great series. I don't know if you saw it. It was on National Geographic featuring Chris Hemsworth called Limitless, and it went deep into the topic of longevity and health span. And there's a very poignant moment where they talk about DNA testing with Chris, and he gets it done, finds out that he has the coding for Alzheimer's, which is can be a pretty scary thing to know like that's on the train tracks. We don't know when, but it's coming.
My
And so
father passed
like
away with it, so it's the worst.
and so what do you tell someone that may not want to know what their genetic coding is and what may lie ahead because of it? And is ignorance bliss or is it just foolish?
Well, if you could know, let's just use Alzheimer's as an example because that's one that it's not if it comes, it's when it comes. And a lot of it is just the signaling and the widespread um, ripples in your brain are you start to see those pieces to it. So if I was told that because my father has passed away with Alzheimer's that I'm a higher risk for it and it's in my DNA, there's things that I can do today to strengthen those neurons in my brain to make sure that my brain stays healthy, that I might not get it until I'm 80, let's just say 90, whatever I live. Like I might not get it till the very end moment of my passing versus getting it at the 50, 60 mark where your heart's still beating, but your brain's not there. And that's the sad moment. And there are things that you can do. There's even mental exercises that you can keep those neurons very, very strong and very, very healthy. And tests that you can do each year to see your brain waves and the expansion of those ripples in your brain, so that you can kind of see the onset of when it's going to happen and you can prepare yourself. I would rather prepare myself versus all of a sudden one day going, like my children coming to me saying, Mom, you're forgetting a lot of stuff, and that happening and then getting diagnosed with it and saying, okay, within the year it's going to be really, really bad. So there are times where you can actually push that down the road. And I'm working with a company that uses the first and only AI system that takes every case science study, puts it into an AI, and spits out exactly the formula that you need to be taking based off of your DNA, which is the next step to this process. It's not just taking a supplement and saying, okay, you need to take magnesium. Now it's saying, all right, based off of this and based off of all the science, hundreds of thousands, now AI is going to predict this is the exact formula that your body needs, milligrams, the format of magnesium, because there are many, everything that you need. That's like the ultimate step of saying, okay, here's your pill. And that's what we're working on now is working on basically taking that information and putting it through this AI system and using advancements. And that's key, is using the advancements that we have.
That's awesome. And actually, as a sidebar, one of the things that they're getting more and more strong research, specifically to Alzheimer's, is one of the big action steps you could take is sleep and the correlations with sleep and Alzheimer's. So being more aware of your sleep hygiene and making sure that you get sufficient and quality sleep, maybe one of the best things you can do is a first step in terms of practical action steps specific to Alzheimer's.
I mean, your body heals during sleep and it doesn't heal during the day. So the key to sleep and getting those 6 to 8 hours, which if you even look back to Albert Einstein, he was very dominant at saying, I need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And he was a genius. The key to sleep is basically, okay, I've done everything that I need to do. I've given my body what it needs. Now that rest period is when your body basically says, I'm not having to do anything else. I don't have to think. I don't have to tell your body to hear something, see something, smell something. I'm able to actually heal it. And if you get that sleep that you need, your body will actually do what it's supposed to do. Like your body has a lot of different unique attributes that actually want to heal your body. You just got to give it the resources that it needs. So if you have inflammation, which is probably the stem key factor to 80% of disease is inflammation in the body. And we all have it. It's just a different level. If we do what we need to do to reduce that inflammation in our body and then fall asleep in a nice, good, sound sleep, your body can actually do what it needs to do and heal viruses, everything that we want to take supplements or an antibiotic for, your body actually can defend. And it should. Like you should try to push it to defend itself.
So, you're sort of talking about supplementation and obviously lifestyle stuff. And we've got supplements out there, and the supplement industry is currently a $90 billion industry last year, and it's going to double by 2032. How can we pair up the big rocks? And because the supplement industry is not going anywhere, it's just going to continue to grow and grow and grow. How can we continue to educate people in the right way that, hey, look, the big rocks are important and it's a supplement for a reason. And the hard part is that message gets drowned because there isn't as much profitability in preventative care. So, how do we have that conversation with people?
That's a good question because supplement does mean supplementation, and so many people think that it's the cure-all, even down to this big mass boom of greens and reds, right? You just take it in a powder form, put it in your drink, you got all the greens you need for the day. But people don't really think through what process that vegetable or fruits went through to get to where it needs to go into your drink and dissolve and be sweet and taste good and all those things. So we're trying to take a quick fix to, I don't really want to eat a whole bunch of greens, so I'm just going to put it in a shake and be good with it, when it's really supposed to be just, no, you just didn't eat enough greens. So let me just supplement it with it versus removing greens from your diet or not trying to push yourself to eat natural greens. And we see this world around us where everything's kind of that quick fix, everything's instant gratification. Give me a shot so I can lose weight, give me this so I don't have high blood pressure, all of those things. My husband had high blood pressure and wanted to go off of high blood pressure medicine. And he really literally said, I want to be off this. So I'm going to do everything I need to do. He went completely vegan and removed everything from his diet that he potentially thought was giving him high blood pressure and went off medication. And he was in the best shape of his life at the same time because all he was eating was really truly what, let's just say, our ancestors were eating. And then gradually brought back in meats, but in a right way, and made sure that it was, we know what, is in that meat versus going to, a burger place and grabbing a burger. It's really understanding like the meat quality. And that's what I think and I hope America goes to is like, let's look at the food quality that we're serving our consumers, because that is a piece to everything. Is that quick fix of the quick lunch, the quick this, the quick give it to me now. I just don't want to wait for the results. And we have to kind of go back to slow and steady wins the race is like my philosophy. If you do it the right way, it might take you longer, but it's gonna last you and it's gonna be life changing because you've actually changed all the bad habits.
All right, so there's two analogies that I like to use with supplements. One, Mike, we get from our mentor, Greg Cook, and he talks about, the guy who walks into the nutritionist's office and he's smoking a Marlboro Red and he's got a glass of whiskey in his hand. He says, "What's the best brand of fish oil that I should take?" And like that's someone who's missing the big picture, not missing the big rocks that you're talking about. And the other one I get from one of my other mentors, Paul Check, and it's if Mike and I were going to build a house and Mike's in charge of getting the wood and I'm in charge of getting the nails. I go out and buy the best golden nails that are available. And then Mike goes, into the woods and gets old, rotted out wet wood to build the house. My golden nails don't matter all that much, right? So you have to get those main things done first. Now, that's a big piece that I'm glad that you're stressing. The other piece that I'm glad that you've touched on a bunch of times, and I said I wanted to come back to this, is a lot of times with supplements specifically, we have a this for that mentality. Okay, I want, I have high blood pressure. I'm going to take this. I have this. I'm going to take this without the understanding of not only how you may not be able to digest and absorb and utilize that specific nutrient, but also not understanding how you can't do anything in our physiology in isolation in a silo. And that so like when people look at even in performance like this testosterone booster, like your endocrine system is so complex with all these different switches, you can't just switch one on and think it's not going to impact all of these others that are at play. And so when we look at, nutritional kind of blueprinting specific to somebody, you can't do a this for that because you don't also understand that of those 10 bottles you said you have on the counter, that the first two may contradict the second two, and the next two may actually undo the first two. And so talk about like getting the whole picture and understanding the interactions of each thing with each other, and then its holistic interactions with our physiology.
We know that brings up a good point is vitamin D. So vitamin D has had its showcase for since COVID, I think. And our body stores vitamin D. We get vitamin D, as everyone knows, you can put your hand out of a window for 15 minutes and your body will naturally produce vitamin D. There's also a supplement called L-arginine that will actually reactivate dormant vitamin D. So, during our kind of like philosophy of formulating, we thought about what happens in our body naturally when we take a supplement. And then at the same time, what do we need to complement it because of what it does? And a prime example of that was our glutathione. Glutathione is the master antioxidant. You can't survive without it. Your body has it. But it's the one ingredient that actually turns off inflammation. And, people want to take this thinking, okay, it's going to help with inflammation. It's a master antioxidant, but you also want to support the things that it needs to do. So we put, turmeric in there. We put certain things that let's give it support that what it's supposed to do. Let's also touch the other pieces. And that goes to that one size fits all or the, if I've got this, let me take this. Well, the key to that is taking this plus everything else that supports what it's supposed to be doing. And if you've got all of this other things going on, this one supplement can't do what it's supposed to do because you have all these interactions going on in your body that basically it's like, okay, that's too much work. I'm just going to be dissolved and I'm going to go out the digestive system and we're good. And people don't realize is that like supplements aren't all formulated the same way either. So when you look at just turmeric, there are so many forms of turmeric and there's high levels and high quality and it goes in your body, but your body really can't absorb turmeric. It needs black pepper or bioperine to activate it. And so many consumers don't realize it's not just about turmeric. It's about what's in that turmeric, the way that it was processed, the source of the turmeric, and did they combine it with black pepper or bioperine to activate it inside your body? And that's the piece that I think we're trying to kind of get out is supplement companies, yes, there's thousands and thousands of them, but they're all kind of formulated differently and they all source their raw ingredients differently. There's a big giant company that look, all they care about is getting a supplement for $2, selling it for 50. There's another supplement company that's like, okay, I want to believe in the sources of it, so I'm going to buy it for 10 and sell it for 50. Like there's so many different levels of supplement companies that you consumers think that it's all the same. Like you go to CVS and you see all the vitamin C's and you go, okay, which is the cheapest? All right, it's $3. I'm just going to grab the $3 one, not realizing that that $3 might be just worth $3. And there could be a $3 that's actually worth more than the $50. And you just got to know and understand what you're reading on the back of the labels and their sourcing and the company and that kind of thing. So I only hope that consumers start getting more and more educated to where they start actually reading labels, they start looking into companies, they start looking at certifications of the company. I'm only hoping more companies start getting clean label, which is what we went through the process of doing, because that's another piece. I've worked for companies where the labels don't meet label claim. I've worked for companies that convert product from another product in a warehouse with no clean room. And I've seen things that I just don't ever want to see again. So I think consumers saying, okay, they've got this, they've got that. It's not just about being like, okay, they went through good manufacturing practices. But do you realize that good manufacturing practices seal just means that they went through the guidelines supposedly of good manufacturing practice. It's not an actual certification. Seeing C before that means that good manufacturing practices went into their facility, investigated everything, looked at their sourcing, all of that, and sealed them with you're certified at that you do the process that you're supposed to do. So there's the little pieces that I think consumers need to start just knowing and educating on to be able to make the right choices when it comes to picking supplements.
That's awesome stuff. And then what makes it even more confounding is wrap it all the way back around is you stick your arm out your window, Ashley, in Florida, and you get that vitamin D. Mike and I are up in the Northeast in New York and Boston. We get gray and cloudy and 20 degrees right now. So,
But
even
you
that's got to
do
factor in.
realize you still get sun rays.
We do, but not anything like you're getting. And so
It's
even that,
true.
and so that has to get factored in as well. And you're talking about, okay, well, maybe I need to change what my routine is in February versus what it is in July.
And it goes down to back to what you were saying is physicians treating people differently based off of where they live, because that also goes down to it because you are not high in serotonin naturally because you do have the clouds and the snow and the cold weather. Where me in Florida, I have a high serotonin because I've got sunlight, I've got, cleared, I can be outside a lot more than you can and feel kind of like boost my own natural serotonin. So that does play back to what we started with is that physicians sometimes do treat people differently based off of like where they're located.
Yeah, and all you got to do is drive in New Jersey, New York, or Boston traffic, and you'll feel the low serotonin oozing out of the cars.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So as we kind of, wrap it up, what are you currently working on, and what can we look forward to seeing from you all?
So we are working on, I think I briefly went to it, is we are working on bringing advancements to the consumer for at home and also utilizing advancements in AI and technology to dissect this beast a little bit more for the consumer, and again, it's going down to, okay, you need magnesium. What form of magnesium, what milligram of magnesium do you need for your body? And because they're not all created equally. So right now we're working on partnering with a company that will be able to actually do that. So we'll take not only recommending products
after their DNA, but then saying, based off of your DNA and your results and our technology, this is your exact formula that you should be taking every day to help you with whatever XYZ that your DNA is telling us. The second thing is we're working on partnering with a patented company that is trying to launch in the United States that's doing the at-home cancer testing, and they're starting with pancreatic and lung and exposing that to consumers because, again, those are two cancers that pretty much are a death sentence. And knowing that you're already got it in your DNA to have those, it's just like the Alzheimer's is like knowing before it happens. Changing your lifestyle to push that down the road is key. And that's, we're not trying to prevent it because sometimes you just can't prevent certain diseases, but it's pushing it down the road where it comes later in your life, and it's the quality of life. Our big motto is quality of life and bringing science to make sure that quality of life is there. And a key to that is pushing disease down. So those are the two main things that we're trying to partner with, strategically partner with companies that have the advancement that we want to bring to our consumers, and bring the right formulations. That's why we created the B12 fermented, was because people that do have B12 methylation, they need the right product. So we did a full B complex instead of just doing the B12, and we did D3 in it as well. So just making sure that we're always looking at science and bringing formulas that if you have a mutation or methylation, that you have access to something that will benefit you.
Well, that's great stuff and a very enlightening conversation. And we'll certainly have all the links, and you want to check out those links in our show notes. And want to thank you for your time today, Ashlee.
Thank you guys very much.
Awesome. And we want to thank you for listening. And this has been the Principles of Performance Podcast. Thank you for listening to the Principles of Performance Podcast. If you've enjoyed our content, please like and share on your social media outlets, as well as subscribe and give us a review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your preferred platform is to listen to. For more information on the Principles of Program Design courses and workshops, visit us at www.principlesofprogramdesign.com and follow us on all of the social media channels where we post new content every day. To save 10% on any PPD courses, enter the discount code PRINCIPLESPODCAST10 at checkout. If you have any questions we can answer or suggestions for the show, you can email us at info@principlesofprogramdesign.com or message us on social media. Thank you again for your support.